In this lesson, I will tell you a few words about the constraints in the sketch. Let's create a new sketch. And constraints are something that allows you to give a relation to geometries, and allows you to determine the relation of geometries with respect to other geometries, or with respect to the origin of the coordinate systems. Let's draw a rectangle. And at this point, this rectangle has no specific dimensions and there is no specific position in the coordinate system. To determine the dimensions of the rectangle, we use the sketch dimension command and indicate the geometry you want to dimension and give the dimension of this geometry. And despite the fact that this rectangle is dimensioned at this point, its position is not specified in space. To determine the position of the rectangle in space, in this case in the x and y coordinate systems, it is necessary to use the dimensions and determine the dimensions with respect to the origin of the coordinate systems, or we can use the constraints. And if you want to place this rectangle in such a way that the corner of the rectangle lies at the origin of the coordinate systems, then for this purpose you have to use the coincident constraint. By selecting this constraint, select this point and at this point. These 2 points are connected to each other and the position of the rectangle is already specified in the coordinate systems in such a way that this corner of the rectangle is covered with the origin of the coordinate systems. And what you can see is that the sketch has changed color to black, and this means that the sketch is fully defined. So the sketch already has such a form that we cannot freely edit this sketch and we cannot freely change the position of this rectangle. Now, if you want to change something, you have to edit the dimensions or edit the constraints. And the constraints are just something that makes it easier to determine the position of the geometry in relation to another geometry, or in relation to the origin of the coordinate systems. Now let's draw a circle. Draw a circle in any place. Add the diameter of this circle. And I would like to place this circle in the middle of this side of the rectangle. And we can do something like this in 2 ways. The first way is to use the automatic constraints. We can drag this circle over the center of the rectangle, and when the triangle symbol appears here, drop the circle in this place and the center of the circle was connected to the center of the line. We can also do something like this manually. Let's create a second circle with a diameter of 10 mm and now we can do it with constraint. Select the midpoint constraint. Select the center of the circle and select this side of the rectangle. And in this way, we also moved the circle to the center of this side. And we could also do something like this using dimensions. Press Escape to cancel this constraint and press Ctrl Z to undo it. And now we can just determine the position of the center of this circle in relation to this point. And to do this, select the dimension. Select this line, select the center of the circle, and in this axis, the distance of the center of this circle from this point is 50 mm because we want to place this circle in the middle of this line. Click here and enter 50. The dimension is still active. Click the center of this circle again and select this line, and in this axis, this distance is 15 mm. And in this way, we also place the center of this circle in the middle of this line, but this circle is placed in the middle of this side of the rectangle only to the point to which it did not change this dimension of the rectangle. Now, if I edit this dimension and enter 100 mm here, the position of this circle has not changed. All the time, this circle is in distance 50 mm from this edge and 15 mm from this edge, but it is no longer in the middle of this side of the rectangle. It looks different with this circle. Here we used constraints, we placed the center of the circle in the middle of this side of the rectangle, and now, regardless of what dimension we enter here, this circle will always be in the middle of this rectangle. And that's the advantage of constraints. By using constraints, we can be a little independent of the dimensions of the geometry. If, for example, we want some geometry to be placed in the middle of another geometry, then a better solution may be to use constraints rather than using dimensions. Then, regardless of what the dimensions of the geometry will be, this geometry, which is to lie in the middle of the selected side, will always lie in the right place. And as you can see, we have a few constraints here. In different situations, different constraints can be useful. One of the useful constraint can be the equal constraint. Let's create 2 circles. And draw the second one. And now dimension one circle. Here enter a diameter of 15 millimeters. And here, create a few more circles to better show the operation of this constraint. We have 5 circles. And now I would like all these circles to have the same diameter. That's why select the equal constraint and select this circle and this circle. Then this circle and this circle. And so on and so on. And now all these circles have the same diameter. Now, as we change the diameter of this circle, enter here, for example, 25 millimeters, the diameter of the other circles has also changed. Now press Ctrl Z to return to this form. And here we had to select each circle one by one, but we can also do it with the Ctrl key. We can select all the circles, and now we can also select the equal constraint, and now this constraint will automatically be applied to all circles. And as you can see, this is another advantage of using constraints. That is determining relations for geometry. Here we gave such a relation that these circles have the same diameter as this circle. And now, if the diameter of this one circle changes, the diameter of the other circles will also change. If we dimensioned each of these circles, then later, if it would be necessary to change the diameter of the circles, then it would be necessary to change the diameter of each circle. Another useful constraint is the symmetry constraint. For this purpose, let's create a line. Create such a slightly inclined line. Press Escape to cancel the line drawing command. And now, before I show you the symmetry constraint, I will show you the horizontal-vertical constraint, which means that the selected line or the selected 2 points will lie vertically or horizontally. Select this constraint, select this line, and now this line is a vertical line. Press Escape, and I would like these 2 circles to be placed symmetrically relative to this line. To do this, at the beginning deselect all the geometries. Click somewhere with the left mouse button outside the geometries to make sure that no geometry is selected. Now select the symmetry constraint. Select this point, and this line, and now these 2 circles lie symmetrically relative to this line. Press Escape to cancel this command. And now, by changing the position of one circle, the position of the second circle will also change. And this constraint is often useful. And okay, we'll finish here. I don't want to give too much information here. At this point, the most important thing is that you know that there is something like constraints, and constraints create relations between geometries. And allow you to make a connection between geometries and allow you to determine the position of one geometry relative to the other geometry. But we can also get the same using dimensions. However, in some cases, and even in most cases, if we have such an opportunity, it is better to use constraints because the later editing of the sketch will be easier if we have constraints, not dimensions. Just like here, I just changed the dimension of this side of the rectangle. This circle is still in the middle of this side, and now to make this circle lie in the middle of this side, I have to change this dimension. And I just get an additional step. If I used constraints here, I wouldn't have to edit anything anymore. And okay, that's all for today. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to this channel.